I saw someone's feet on the ground.
So you went to the apartment and saw someone's feet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The voice trembled in the cold night after Christmas, tearing the quiet atmosphere of a small town, a place where people still believed that crime was a distant thing. It was December 26, 2013, in Harris County, Texas, a peaceful suburb still glowing with the red and green of the Christmas lights that had not yet been turned off. But hidden behind the sparkling holiday light was a nightmare about to begin. A young woman had suddenly disappeared from her life as if she had never existed. That girl was Melissa Renee Sowders, 26 years old, mother of 4 children and pregnant with her 5th child. She was once a woman with a bright smile, working hard in a fast food restaurant, longing to rebuild her life after a broken marriage. The light of hope seemed to return when she found new love in the glimmer of a peaceful future. But on the other side of the story is Matthew Sowders, Melissa's ex-husband, a man who seemed to belong to the past but still kept a strong bond with her through their children. That fateful morning started like any other normal day. No one expected that in just a moment in the middle of a peaceful holiday, a young woman would disappear as if into nothingness. And from there, a journey to find justice began. On the morning of December 26, 2013, the Texas sky was covered in a gloomy gray, as if foreshadowing an impending tragedy. Melissa Sowders began her day unaware that fate was silently pulling her into a spiral with no way out. That morning, she received a text message from her ex-husband, Matthew Sowders, proposing to meet to discuss childcare. They chose a small McDonald's restaurant in Harris County as the meeting place. Security cameras recorded Melissa, Matthew, and their young child chatting calmly, without any signs of the bad things that were about to happen. After the brief meeting, Melissa got into Matthew's car to return home. That was also the last moment she was seen alive. No one outside knew what happened behind the closed door of Matthew's apartment. That calm was just a thin shell covering a horrifying crime. When Melissa didn't return as expected, her boyfriend sensed something was wrong. A vague fear crept in, but no one expected that things had gone beyond the point of being salvageable. On the other side, Matthew had murdered Melissa. He believed that his crime would never be discovered, but no crime is perfect forever. The secret gradually revealed itself when a woman who had a relationship with Matthew decided to break her silence. After hearing his chilling confession, she contacted the police and provided key information that helped solve the case. Immediately, a search force was urgently mobilized. In the bitter cold of winter, they quietly followed each faint clue until the truth was finally revealed. Melissa Sowders and her unborn child had left this world forever. A tragedy closed, opening up irreparable losses. On the afternoon of December 26, 2013, as the last rays of sunlight faded behind the bare trees, a quiet unease crept into the minds of Melissa Sowders' loved ones. She had disappeared suddenly. Her phone went silent, her text messages went unanswered, and more than anyone, Jason Sanford, Melissa's current boyfriend, felt it clearly. They had arranged to meet, but Melissa did not show up and did not leave a single message explaining. Jason tried calling repeatedly, hoping for some reason, but all he got was long, hopeless beeps. Sensing something was wrong, he immediately informed his family, and they quickly contacted the police. The 911 call rang out, shattering the fragile peace of the last days of the year. She's not coming home. No one can contact her. This is not like her at all. On the other end of the line, the operator listened tensely, knowing they were dealing with a missing persons case where any delay could mean tragedy. The police were immediately dispatched to Matthew Sowders' apartment, the last place Melissa was known to have been, but all they found was an eerily quiet place. The apartment was dark, the door locked, and there was no sign of life inside. An uneasy feeling gripped the entire investigation team. They knew they were on the brink of a terrible secret. Wasting no time, the authorities launched a massive search. They combed through traffic cameras, gathered statements from neighbors and relatives. Within hours, the first clue had emerged. Matthew was the last person seen with Melissa. Then suddenly, another character entered the scene. The woman Matthew had been romantically involved with. Unable to bear the weight of the truth, she decided to speak up, recounting Matthew's chilling confession and pinpointing where he had dumped the body. Faint clues led the police to a desolate stream, where they soon discovered a horrifying truth waiting. The crime scene where Melissa Sowders' body was found was a desolate stretch of Cypress Creek, set in the cold, dark air of a Texas winter. The water flowed quietly over moss-covered rocks, as if nature itself were trying to hide some cruel secret that had just occurred. There was no sign of a struggle, no cries for help, just the lifeless body of a young woman and her unborn baby. The police immediately cordoned off the area, patiently searching for even the smallest traces. They collected torn pieces of cloth, faint drag marks on the muddy ground, and especially a large trash can, evidence that had been used to transport the victim's body. Every detail was handled with care, knowing that any mistake could lead to justice being lost. The autopsy quickly revealed the heartbreaking truth. Melissa had died from strangulation. The marks on her neck were clear and unmistakable. There were no other serious injuries to her body, indicating that the incident had occurred in a short period of time without a prolonged struggle. The coroner confirmed that the time of death coincided with the time when Melissa had last been seen, consistent with what investigators had initially recorded. One notable detail that the police could not ignore: the victim's body had not been carefully hidden. All signs pointed to the perpetrator acting in haste, without calculation, and in confusion. It was this carelessness that opened up a new direction for the investigation, helping investigators to more clearly identify the psychological instability and potential motive behind the crime. A crime that was not only motivated by jealousy, but also by obsession and blind despair. Shortly after Melissa Sowders' body was found in Cypress Creek, Harris County investigators realized they were dealing with a serious murder case. The victim was a young, pregnant woman whose life had been taken before it was even complete. The only question that remained was, who was the heartless person who committed this tragedy? From the first clues, suspicion quickly focused on Matthew Sowders, Melissa's ex-husband, and the last person confirmed to have seen her that fateful morning. Their relationship had been strained since their divorce, and the fact that Melissa was starting a new life with her boyfriend and unborn child only added to the suspicion that Matthew had an ulterior motive. The investigation expanded with a series of statements from friends, relatives, and neighbors. They all described Matthew as quiet, unpredictable, and easily swayed by negative emotions. One particularly important detail came from Matthew's secret girlfriend. She said that in a fit of rage, Matthew had once exclaimed, "I can't stand the thought of her getting pregnant with someone else." That statement quickly became the key to the process of unearthing the truth. Matthew was invited to work with the police. During the first interrogation, he appeared calm and cool, claiming that he had simply met Melissa to discuss the children and then brought her home safely. However, the investigators, through intuition and experience, recognized the gaps in his testimony: evasive eyes, off-topic answers, and vague details, all of which suggested that Matthew was hiding something. The police immediately began comparing his testimony with objective data: traffic cameras, security footage around the apartment, and phone data. The picture gradually became clear. There was no footage of Melissa leaving the meeting place. Instead, Matthew was caught on camera moving a large trash can around the time she disappeared. a detail that completely contradicted his story. The ensuing interrogations escalated. The investigators used psychological tactics, constantly drilling into inconsistencies, persistently repeating the evidence. Gradually, Matthew's calm exterior began to crack. At times, he would be confused and give evasive answers, and at other times, he would fall into a state of prolonged silence. The psychological breaking point came when Matthew's secret girlfriend agreed to cooperate more deeply. She agreed to wear a secret recording device during a meeting and skillfully led Matthew to confess. In a moment of loss of control, he said, "She will never embarrass me again." That statement became the key piece of evidence, tightening the legal siege around Matthew. At the same time, the forensic results were completed. Experts confirmed that Melissa died from strangulation, which completely coincided with the time she met Matthew. There were no signs of a third party or an accident. In particular, the DNA samples and biological traces on the evidence matched Matthew, completing the comprehensive picture of the case file. The day Matthew was arrested, the entire peaceful neighborhood was shaken. No one expected that, in the midst of the seemingly warm holidays, tragedy would quietly lurk in their own community. The arrest warrant was executed in silence. Matthew was jailed without the possibility of bail, officially facing a high-level murder charge. The case file was complete with full physical evidence, witness statements, autopsy results, and a recorded confession. Every detail was meticulously reviewed to ensure its solidity before the upcoming trial. The Melissa Sowders case was closed, but its echoes still resonate. It is not only a family tragedy, but also a wake-up call to the dark side of the human psyche, where hatred, jealousy, and selfishness can turn an ordinary person into a murderer. And above all, it is a reminder of the dangers that lurk even in relationships that seem to have ended. In the spring of 2015, a Harris County courtroom was packed. All eyes were on Matthew Sowders, the man who stood before the bar accused of taking the lives of his ex-wife, Melissa Sowders, and their unborn child. This was not only a serious case, but also a profound tragedy of a broken family. Throughout the days of trial, the prosecution gradually reconstructed the haunting events of that fateful day. From the seemingly normal meeting between Matthew and Melissa, to the murder and dumping of the body in Cypress Creek. Sharp forensic evidence, tight witness testimony, and especially the recording of Matthew's confession painted a clear portrait of a man blinded by hatred and jealousy. The recording, in which Matthew bitterly said, "She'll never embarrass me again," became the decisive blow that left the jury with no doubt about his guilt. Each detail that was revealed was a stab in the heart for those in attendance, especially when Melissa's boyfriend took the stand, tearfully recounting the desperate moments of waiting for the girl he loved, who would never return. The defense tried to argue that this was an accident that happened during a stressful time, but all mitigation efforts quickly collapsed under the weight of the undeniable evidence. No one in the courtroom could quell the pain of the truth. 2 lives were taken in a moment of brutal loss of control. After intense deliberation, the jury reached a final verdict. Matthew Sowders was guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 60 years in prison. It was a verdict that did not assuage the loss, but at least brought some measure of justice to the victim and her family. The case left a heavy echo in the community. People in Harris County held vigils, lit candles, and prayed for Melissa and her innocent child. The story became a wake-up call about the importance of recognizing and stopping violence at the smallest signs before things get too far. The tragic passing of Melissa Sowders has closed an unfinished journey of life and left an unfillable void in the hearts of those who loved her. 4 innocent children grew up without their mother's embrace, and a small unborn creature will forever be unable to feel the warmth of life. But the pain does not stop at the family. it touches every person in the community, forcing everyone to look back at the dark corners that can exist in everyday life. The case of Melissa Sowders reminds us that violence is not always easy to recognize. It can silently creep in through soulless eyes, controlling words, invisible boundaries that those involved have become so accustomed to that they do not recognize. And tragedy is sometimes just a decision away, a moment of silence or a moment of indifference, and can happen forever. The law can bring justice, but it cannot erase the deep wounds. Behind the verdict are broken lives, children growing up with memories of loss that cannot be forgotten. Perhaps the most important thing we need to do is not just wait for violence to break out to intervene, but learn to listen and recognize the warning signs early, even the smallest ones, because sometimes just a timely attention can save a life. What about you? What do you think we can do differently to prevent tragedies like this from happening again?